South American residences are not as easy as you think. Today, we're going to address some of the most daunting tasks that you have to complete when moving to South American countries like Paraguay and Argentina. I am going to fill you in on some of the biggest challenges our clients face, and hopefully this video will shed a lot of light and solve the many problems that so many of you guys have. This is really the mission of today's video. First up, I wanted to get started talking about the criminal record requirements. You know this, when you move abroad, most countries, they don't want to take in criminals. We're talking about people with severe criminal records, such as felony convictions. Even if your felony convictions have been 10 years ago, even if you committed to those 10 years ago, they still appear on your criminal record certificate. The question is, who will take you in and who will not? This is a very popular question, maybe even the most popular question that we're being asked these days by people who have a criminal record and are being rejected by certain countries that just don't want to take you in at all. Here's something to consider. If your criminal record has been over 10 years ago, let's say you committed to something a decade ago, you're now in your early 30s, it happened in your late teens or early 20s, how can you solve this dilemma if you want to obtain a residence permit abroad? What you can do is you can pick countries that will only look back a certain time frame. Let me give you an example. A country like Argentina will only look back 3 years. They will ask you, hey John, where have you lived during the past 3 years? Where have you spent more than a year? They want to know this. And maybe you haven't even lived in your country of citizenship or citizenships, meaning you have to provide a proof of your criminal record from the countries where you spent more than a year during the past 3 years. So if you had your time split out over a number of countries, they would want to know what you have done or not done in those countries. Argentina is different from Paraguay. Paraguay takes your criminal record certificate extremely serious, and you absolutely cannot have anything on it. This is a problem, and Paraguay will probably not accept your residency application. It will be denied. So let's say you have a DUI on your criminal record. It stays on your criminal record even if it's been 5 years in the past, 9 years in the past, 14 years in the past. You cannot change the outcome that you created decades ago. It will remain on your criminal record for as long as you remain a citizen of the United States. Other countries may not even list such criminal records. It won't be mentioned on your criminal record certificate. Each country is different. Now, if you have dual nationality, you may have more options than someone who does not. And again, each country is different. And in this video, we're specifically focusing on Argentina and Paraguay. And if you have a criminal record, Paraguay is not the right country for you. You want to look elsewhere. Look at Argentina, look at other Latin countries that only look back 3 years, 5 years, maybe 10 years. Paraguay looks at your entire history and can't have anything on it. Nothing. It has to be clean like a freshly printed piece of white paper. Can't have anything on it. Must be spotless. Consideration 2, your birth certificate. This is another big deal breaker to many people. Paraguay requires your birth certificate, and only one country can issue your birth certificate. It's the country where you were born. And because of this, Paraguay wants you to have a clean criminal record certificate and your birth certificate. It's very different in Argentina. We're going to get to this in a moment. We see clients who left their native country to live in a different country, and they decided to renounce their old citizenship because they couldn't take it. Let's say their country does not permit dual nationality. They can't take it, so they had to trade in their passport. Let's say they came from an Asian country and they immigrated to America or Canada. They had to trade in their passport, right? They traded their passport, their, say, Tier 2 or Tier 3 passport for a Tier 1 passport, which comes with its pros and cons. It is no walk in the park. And because of this, sometimes these people have a really hard time applying for Paraguayan residency, because when they go back to the consulate or embassy of their native country without their passport, without their citizenship, the native country often says, what do you want from us? You decided to renounce your citizenship. We no longer work with you. We will no longer assist you with anything. And this is the cold, hard reality of renouncing your citizenship. It can take anywhere from a few weeks to more than a year for your native country to renounce your citizenship. So even if you initiated the renunciation process, it is not a done deal immediately. You actually have to wait for for a prolonged period of time sometimes, because your native country may check, hey, have you paid your taxes, especially if you have just surrendered tax residency and you have moved out of your country. They will look at everything very carefully before they give you the green light, because a renunciation is a definite decision. In some European Union countries, you may actually be able to regain your old citizenship if it's been less than a year in the past, and you decide to apply again. Maybe you think you made a mistake, you made an emotional decision. There are certain countries that may let you regain your citizenship if it's only been, say, a few months since you renounced. Other countries won't let you do it at all. To them, it's a permanent decision, so you have to consider these things very, very carefully. Here's what I recommend. Many countries require a birth certificate for a complete residency application. It must be your original birth certificate, and it must also be legalized, and things get complicated very quickly if you renounce your citizenship and you want to go back and get more birth certificates. My personal recommendation is for you to apply for several birth certificates, so that in the event that you commit to a renunciation, you have plenty of material to play with. Let's say you want to apply for residency in different countries that require a birth certificate, actually an original birth certificate, to process your application, and you have 5 original legalized copies, then you're good to go. And also something, there's just so many things to consider. Like if you've lived in a country and you've been out of your native country for a long time, then some countries also want to see your naturalization certificate, or they want to see your permanent residency card. So let's say you've lived in Israel, or you have lived in the United States and Canada, but you're not originally from these countries. What could happen, and oftentimes what will happen, is when you apply at the embassy in the country where you're currently located, let's say that's in the US or Canada, they will ask you for your permanent residency card and your criminal record certificate. So what we see is that in order for you to apply using a different country, you actually have to prove that you're a legal resident of that country. Plus, they also want to see your criminal record certificate. They want to see everything. So this is a very important decision, right? And if you're in the process of renouncing, if you have not committed to your renunciation yet, please go ahead and get more birth certificates. It will go a long way. Even if you renounce, at least you can prove it that you were born in that country and it is an original birth certificate. Because again, once you renounce your native countries, consulates and embassies may not do any business with you anymore. They don't want to see you anymore in many cases. You're not paying many more taxes. It's done. The relationship has officially ended. Next, importing personal goods into South America. This is a big concern. You want to move to the beautiful continent of South America. Let's say you want to settle down in Paraguay or Argentina, and you want to bring a lot of personal items with you. Ideally, you don't want to pay taxes on these imports because they're personal imports. They are not for your business. And there's some really important considerations to make here as well. First of all, many countries will not let you import personal goods tax-free, import duty-free, unless you're a legal resident of the country. We're seeing from clients that, hey, they want to import things, but they haven't really lived in the country. They haven't obtained residency yet. And some countries go much further and say, hey, if you've lived in our country for at least 3 consecutive years, some may say just 1 consecutive year, then you may import your personal goods tax-free. This is interesting. Of course, it depends on what you're bringing with you. Let's say you want to bring a large collection of personal items, whatever that may be, right? Clothing, paintings, or like vinyl CDs, right? Whatever you want to import into, say, Paraguay or Argentina, you really have to observe the import code. The import code is not as easy as it is in many countries, and oftentimes you actually have to have obtained residency before a tax-free importation of personal goods can happen. This is something that we deal with at Nomad Elite, and we help our clients import personal items and goods from, say, Europe, or from North America into Paraguay and Argentina. So if you're interested in working with us, please contact us. Many people have pets these days. Many people have dogs and cats. They want to bring their beloved animals with them. They're like their children, and I get it. I also have a pet. I have a dog, and this is a tedious process. And trust me, sometimes it can take weeks and even months before you can successfully import your pet into a new country. Of course, quarantine free. You don't want to see your beloved cat or dog end up in a quarantine, especially if it's an older animal, it probably would not survive. The good news is that Paraguay makes it actually quite easy to import animals. When you arrive at the airport, they don't really check much. However, the airlines, they do their due diligence, and that's the case for Paraguay and also for Argentina. So the airlines handle this part. We do recommend planning at least 90 days ahead because it takes a lot of time and paperwork to prepare all the documents. You must have a health certificate, and it can't just be a health certificate from your veterinarian. It must be endorsed. In America, it's endorsed by the USDA. In different countries, let's say you are departing from Spain, we're seeing a lot of people from Spain, and they're obviously flying from Spain into, say, Argentina and Paraguay, then they have to deal with the government of Spain to get this done. So the health certificate from your veterinarian must be endorsed by whoever regulates livestock in the country of origin. They endorse the documents, and only if the health certificate has been endorsed, you will be allowed to board the plane. The health certificate issued by a veterinarian is just not good enough. You need more. You need more legality to it, right? You need to have your documents legalized, and that's why the regulatory authorities, that are in charge for animal imports, exports, they will take care of that. We're talking about the Department of Agriculture, right? They handle this kind of stuff. So you're gonna need a health certificate for your animal. You're gonna need also your rabies certificate. And sometimes you need internal and external parasite treatment that must be done within 10 days. And oftentimes, in most cases, your health certificate that's been endorsed by the regulatory authority will only be valid for up to 10 days. So you wanna get started with this process a week before, but we do recommend talking to your veterinarian probably 2 months before you decide to depart, because again, if your pet needs any vaccines, then they can't often travel. If the vaccine was given, let's say 2 weeks before, 3 weeks before, oftentimes there's a 30-day window before your pet can travel. So please take all of this into consideration. Another very popular question that we're being asked is, what are the minimum stay requirements for residency in Paraguay and in Argentina? Let's start out with Paraguay. You're looking at a 1 day per year minimum stay requirement to maintain temporary residency. Then once you convert it to permanent residency, you're looking at a 1 day per 3-year stay. So every 3 years, go there for 1 day to maintain permanent residency. This requirement can change anytime. There's no guarantee, and now that we're already in more advanced stages of the residency transition that's happening even in Latin America, it's very possible that a year or 2 years from now the requirements will be drastically different. So this is something to consider. That's why we recommend getting residency now, while you don't need to prove economic solvency in Paraguay. And it's possible that in a few years' time, Paraguay requires you to live in the country for at least 30 days per year, or 90 days per year, or maybe even 183 days per year. There is no guarantee in this line of business. There's no guarantee the industry of residence permits. There's no guarantee. It can change any moment. In Argentina, you're looking at a minimum stay of 183 days to maintain residency. Many people claim, oh, you don't have to do this. You can just stay for like a month or 2 months and you don't have to pay your taxes in Argentina. Well, Argentina does not have a territorial tax system. And eventually the chickens will come home to roost. We only recommend the legal, and so we recommend you to declare your taxes in Argentina. As a tax resident of Argentina, you're obligated to report all of your income to the Argentine authorities, and you also have to pay taxes on all your income. Now, if you qualify for the foreign earned income exclusion in the US, that's a different story, because then you may be able to consume certain money tax-free as an American, so you don't have to pay money to the US government, to the IRS, but you still have to pay income taxes in Argentina. There may be certain tax exemptions that you may qualify for. We'll have to look at your case individually. There may be legal tax avoidance strategies that we can implement for you, but we don't recommend doing anything that goes against the legal code of Argentina. In Paraguay, this is very different. Once you get residency in Paraguay, you will not pay taxes on most of your foreign source income, because Paraguay embraces a territorial tax system where most foreign income is excluded from local income tax burdens. It's a very different tax concept. Some people say that Uruguay has a territorial tax system. Yes and no, it's not so clear cut. Depends on which exemption you qualify for. So get expert advice from Nomad Elite on these two countries. We don't advise on 50 countries like other companies do. We specialize in a few countries because it takes a lot of work to keep up with all this crazy stuff. Taxes, import, duties, all that kind of stuff. It takes a lot of reading into legislation to figure this out and to stay up to date. It's a lot of work, but we do make it happen. Last but not least, family residency considerations. Some people want to obtain a Plan B in Paraguay, or they want to obtain residence in Argentina, but they're not ready to move yet. In this case, you want to consider a lot of things, right? You want to look at your residency situation from different angles, because what you don't want is fall victim to double taxation, and what you also don't want is to break the residency requirements of a country, because first of all, you may have to restart the residency application process, or you may even be denied to apply the next time because you broke laws in the country. I'm not saying that if you are outside of the country for a long period of time and then you don't come back, you lose your residency, that you cannot apply again. I'm not saying that, but I'm talking specifically about taxes, because nowadays more and more is tracked, and even if you think, oh, it will not have any consequences, there is a chance that it could have consequences in the not so distant future. If you want to get residency in Paraguay and you want to bring your family with you, but it's only going to be a trip a year, let's say you want to go on a 1 or 2 week vacation, you don't want to live in Paraguay for a couple months a year or half a year, you just want to secure residency, well, there's no economic solvency requirement. If that's your plan, then get one person into the system first, because what happens is that once you've gotten yourself into the system, let's say you are the main applicant, you've gotten yourself in the system, and after 2 years' time, you decide, okay, I want to bring my children, maybe they're still in school, or perhaps it's just not the right time for you to move. You yourself have work obligations, business obligations, you can't move yet, but you want to get yourself into the system so you don't lose your chance to get residency in Paraguay while the requirements are relatively relaxed. Get yourself into the system first. Once you've done that, you can apply for permanent residency in Paraguay, and once you have obtained permanent residency, what you can do is you can automatically bring in your family on permanent residency. Obviously, we're talking about your parents, your spouse, if you're married, and your children. This is great because you've gotten yourself into the system, and simultaneously you have saved yourself money because you didn't apply for everyone starting out with temporary residency. So you actually saved a lot of money because you're only dealing with one application for permanent residency now and not two for temporary residency and permanent residency. You have done yourself a massive favor by saving a lot of time, because getting the documents is a lot of hassle. It's worth it because you're creating a brighter future for yourself and your family, and simultaneously you're locking in an amazing deal that's unheard of in many geographic locations worldwide. This is what we recommend. Get yourself in. This will keep your budget low and will also reduce the amount of headaches you have to deal with because you're only dealing with one application. Of course, something different is when you're ready to move to Paraguay already, and you know you're going to be in Paraguay for more than 90 days per year, and you want to set up tax residency, get your tax number. If that's the case, your whole family should apply for temporary residency first, because then you want to live in Paraguay and you don't want to do like border runs and that kind of stuff. Let's say you live in a very rural place, you don't want to do that, you want to be comfy. Great, do that. But if your plan is to just get a plan B and you're not sure yet, or you want to save money, then follow what I have just described. It will really save you a lot of time, money, and headaches. Are you ready to move to Paraguay? If you want to move to Paraguay, you want to take advantage of this month's special, and the same is actually also true for Argentina residents. Please check out our offers. You should see the website link displayed right on the screen. We appreciate you. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and we see you on the next video.